My husband Warren went to school there. He went to 8 years. Had to go out Bogard 1 year for some reason, but I forgot what it was. But when me and Warren got married in '59, they were still having class down there. And his sister was in the 8th grade. And we'd come up in the daytime and we'd stop and talk to them. They'd be out on the playground. And that was in '59 and '60. They were still having class. They had 8th grade, the first through 8th grade.
The very first founder of Sunset Gap was Miss Sarah Cochran, who came with her elderly mother from down Wilhite, about 5 miles, where they had a center called Juniper, a mission station, and it was decided that there were other church groups in the area and that they might not be so needed there, but the people around where Sunset Gap is now said, "Oh, don't go. Come up the road a piece and we'll give you some land, some Sevier County land and some Cock County land, and it will be a center for both counties and run by the Presbyterian Board of National Missions." So she established a tent on the hillside in front of where the smokehouse now is. And she and her mother started out there, and then the craft house was built. I don't know if it came before the school. The school was built and the craft house was built. The craft house had been a medical clinic in the beginning, but the children who walked from up to 5 miles to get to school and back would be taken across the road to the dormitory and put to bed with a cod liver oil spoonful and a peppermint candy, and they would take a nap for a few minutes, for a while, before school started. And that was quite amazing to me, how that could have happened. She was known as a very strict person to the community, and after school hours, her motto was, "Get off the mission grounds, go home." And we were trying to say, "Come to the mission grounds." So that was how I thought about Sarah Cochran. But she did the job of opening it up to the community, and I admire her greatly for that. She had started a mission out in New Mexico or Arizona. It might have been Ganado, but I'm not sure. But she was a force to be reckoned with at Sunset Gap. It was called Glenwood, for years, until someone from the Board of National Missions at sunset stood on the porch of the center and looked westward and said, "This shouldn't be Glendale, this should be Sunset Gap." And that's how it got its name.
We learned to sew. We always had sewing class, and we learned to sew. And I always made good stitches, which I can't wait to do now with this arthritis in my hands. Yeah, we always had, every day, we had a certain length of time that we got out to exercise. We do jumping jacks and different things, Throw your arms out and jump up and down. They kept us very active. Well, she wants you to keep yourself clean and neat. She didn't like you to be stinking or smelling, underarms, stuff like that. And we didn't buy a lot of deodorant because we didn't have a lot of money, but we did take baths. The mothers canned, corn and beans, and we had that. We'd have soup and stuff for hot lunches. We always had a lot of hot lunches, but the mothers put up the canned stuff for the hot lunches. Because everybody in the country raised a big garden. I was very quick to learn, too. I didn't just sit there and look at the books, I learned.
The school closed about the time Duran was born, so he didn't get to go to school up there.
Well, from early on, of course, great-grandmother wanted to see a school in the community. They were closing, I believe the name of it was Glendale, and Miss Sarah Cochran came to meet with the ladies in the community and tell them the school's going to be closing. Well, my great-grandmother got people together and petitioned and talked, and great-grandmother couldn't read or write, but she wanted her grandchildren to, because her children had already finished school. So that was important to her, and it's important to me and my family. Education always has been. And my first memories of education was Mama reading to me as I was going through preschool, and Kaye Davis as my first teacher. She was a wonderful teacher. She wanted people to be creative and enjoy learning and have fun learning. And sometimes schools now focus a little too much on a single test, but she wanted to involve the creativity, the hands-on, the leadership, the fellowship, encouragement. That was one good thing. I remember I believe Daddy said they had usually 3 teachers, I think, when he was in school. And he would have started about 1939, 1940. He was born in 1934. And he had a sister that was 2 years older than him. But Miss Cochran was there, and she was strict. She made them mind, Daddy said. And Miss Plummer, I know that's the 2 I remember. There was a third when he was there. Cannot remember her name. But Daddy said the ladies in the community would can vegetables and meat and stuff like that and donate it. And that's what the kids ate during the school year, during the winter. And, of course, they got to get out of school when it was crop planting time in the spring and when it was time in the fall to take up tobacco and hay and stuff, pumpkins and corn. They didn't have to go to school during that time. But Daddy said one time what they had to eat was cornbread, and he called it macaroni and maters. It was just canned tomatoes that the ladies had canned in big, I think, half-gallon jars mixed with elbow macaroni. He said he didn't like it. He said slimy, and I wasn't going to eat it. And so I think it was Miss Cochran come by and tapped him with a ruler, I think, and said, David Williams, you get to eating that macaroni and maters. And he wouldn't eat it. And she said, you're not getting up and going nowhere till you eat that bowl of macaroni and maters. He said, I wouldn't eat it. And he said, I started making faces behind her back, and kids would laugh. And she scolded me again. He said they had paper napkins, and she told him not to look up. And he said, I tore a hole in my paper napkin, and I'd peep out at everybody. So I asked him if he ever ate it, and he said, no, I never did eat it. So they were strict, but they taught him a lot. He said they worked a lot on the math, of course, and right now, Daddy wasn't a good speller, and his penmanship wasn't real good. He could read pretty good, and again, great-grandma, she couldn't read or write. Another interesting side story: Grandpa Ward, who I named my youngest son after, he went off to fight in World War I, and Grandma was 10 years younger than him. I think she was just about 15. He was 24 or 5. And Grandma couldn't read or write. So Grandpa was over in Europe in 18 in that final push in July, August, September, October, before the armistice in November. He'd write letters to Grandma, but she'd have to take them to one of her 3 sisters that was older than her to read them to her. And that was kind of neat. And when Grandpa got out in the war, he took 2 newspapers a day, the evening paper and the morning paper, and he read them both. And he'd roll them up And sometimes we'd go to Sunset Gap and then go see Grandma and Grandpa, and they'd get me a newspaper and I'd lay it out on the floor and look at the funnies, we called them, the cartoons. I couldn't read them, but I looked at them. Grandma and Grandpa walked to Sunset Gap, and then we'd take them back home. It's about a little over a mile that they'd walk to Sunday school. But neither one of them went to school there because they had probably went to Glenwood. But Daddy did go, and his sister, and then it was a 1st through 8th grade school. And Daddy said when he started high school, the bus picked him up at Sunset Gap, so they had to walk a mile to catch a bus. And he said Aunt Zella, who was 2 years older than him, when he was a freshman, she was a junior, she tried to make him sit with a girl on the bus, and he didn't want to sit with her. So she badgered him for 2 weeks, and he said 2 weeks into his freshman year, he quit school and never did go back. So his school ended at Sunset Gap pretty much, those 8 years that he had there.